Welcome to Flat, Cool, and Acid Free, an OK State Archives podcast, bringing you stories about Oklahoma State University and Oklahoma. I'm Nina Thornton, multimedia producer for the OSU Libraries. On this episode, we're talking about the life of Henry Bellmon, who graduated from Oklahoma State University, then Oklahoma A&M, in 1942.
So Henry Bellmon was a graduate of Oklahoma Agricultural Mechanical College. He graduated in 1942. I think he emphasized, or I think in his life he emphasized service. And that's what I really admire about him. His whole life was really service to others. And I think he's an interesting guy. And we also have a number of collections related to Mr. Bellmon. So I think that's why we're going to talk about him a little bit today.
So can you tell us a little bit about his life before he got into politics?
So he was born in north central Oklahoma in Tonkawa, grew up in Billings, Oklahoma, which is just north of us. His father was a pioneer settler in Noble County, and so the Bellmons had a farming operation in that area. Graduated from Billings High School, comes to OAMC in Stillwater when I think he was only 17 years old. He completes his college education in 7 semesters. So pretty quick. In fact, I think he was 20. He may not have even been 21 before he graduated. He lived on Knobloch. He lived at 314 South Knobloch, so he lived south of campus. He was an agronomy major here, so graduated in what was the School of Agriculture then. And immediately after graduation, then he signs up to serve in World War II. So he graduates in May of 42, and then by I believe that fall he is in the Marines and served after training in the Pacific Theater. Was involved with 4 amphibious assaults on islands in the Pacific, including Iwo Jima. He's in the service through 1946, and then returns back to Oklahoma to the farm. Is immediately elected to the state House of Representatives. So he's like 24, 25 years old, single guy, but he gets elected to the state house and serves for 2 years. Was not reelected. He lost that election in 1948. So continued to work on the farm and goes on to a whole series of other things we can talk about more. But eventually he becomes a governor. Serves as a senator and then as a governor again. So, can
you tell us about the beginning of Bellmon's political career?
So I kind of touched on that earlier. So he comes back in 46, is elected to the state house, then loses the next election. But he's active in Republican politics in the state. And at the time, Republicans were outnumbered 5-1 by Democrats in the state. And so the Republican Party was really kind of struggling. And so they were looking for people who were willing to run for office. And I think Senator Bellmon, at the time, Mr. Bellmon, just provided kind of a very pragmatic, very just common man kind of approach. I mean, he's a farmer in Noble County. I think many people in Oklahoma could identify with him, relate to him. He had a military service record. And so I think he really built a lot of relationships with people across the state. And so by 1960, here's this guy who's not serving in a political office, yet he's selected to be the chairman of the state Republican Party in Oklahoma. Within 2 years, then he runs for governor. He becomes our first Republican governor in the state history. So you can see for over, 50, 60 years, we'd had Democrats as governors. Now he's elected the first Republican. He serves until through 66, actually January of 67. And at the time, governors could only serve 1 term. You couldn't run for re-election. So he's out of office again. So from 66 to 68, he's still actively involved with the Republican Party in Oklahoma, but he also has made a name for himself nationally. And in 1968, Richard Nixon selects Henry Bellmon, farmer from Noble County, Oklahoma, to serve as his nationwide chairman for his election, his first election. So Bellmon serves in that role, and at the same time, Bellmon decides to run for Senate from Oklahoma. So he's managing a nationwide campaign for Nixon, and he's also running for Senate in Oklahoma. And he wins in Oklahoma, and Nixon also wins the national presidency. And so Bellmon then serves. Actually, he's takes his oath of office in January of '69. He is reelected in '74, and so he serves through 1980 as a senator. And the first part of that, Nixon is president. Then Nixon is removed from office, and that was really a tough time for Senator Bellmon, because he'd been actively involved with Nixon for so long. He'd served as national campaign chairman, and I think that was a difficult transition for him, because he had believed in Nixon, and I think was disappointed when the whole the Watergate stuff happened. In '76, President Ford had been selected president. He was running for election. And Bellmon supported Ford. Well, there was another guy who was running who doesn't make it, but Ronald Reagan makes his first run at trying to be named as the Republican candidate. And Bellmon stayed with Ford. And even though a lot of the Oklahoma delegation had supported Reagan, Bellmon stuck with Ford. In 1980, now Reagan is running for president after 4 years with Jimmy Carter as president. And Bellmon decides to leave the Senate, and so he returns back to Oklahoma. In '82, he's appointed to head one of the state Oklahoma's Health and Human Services Department by a Democratic governor. Appoints Henry to serve, Mr. Bellmon, Senator Bellmon, to serve in that role temporarily. And by '86. He decides to run for governor again, and he's successful. And so he takes the oath of office in '87, serves a 4-year term then as governor. He could have run for re-election again in 91, 90, but he declined at that point. I think by then he's almost 70 years old, and realized it was probably time for him to step away. But that's really kind of his political career, actually involved in building the Republican Party in the state of Oklahoma, served roles in both the state legislature, as governor, executive head of Oklahoma at 2 different times, and then served the state as U.S. Senator for 12 years. So Senator Bellmon served at Noble County in the Soil Conservation Service, but may have led those efforts in Noble County for a number of years, and would always return and was actively involved with things to try to control soil erosion in the county, encouraging things like dams to control water movement, terracing also, probably low-till and no-till agricultural practices. That would have been a little early on that, but he was actively involved with soil conservation activities in Noble County. As senator, he also supported President Nixon's efforts, I believe, to create the Environmental Protection Agency. I'm not sure about that, but I know Nixon actually did quite a few things during his presidency to support environmental activities, and Bellmon was actively involved in supporting that in nationwide efforts that created wetlands, supported national parks, and provided a number of different environmental protections that have served the nation well. So he worked both at the local level, state level as governor, and then national level through the efforts for the Environmental Protection Agency.
Wow.
Anyway, quite active.
Sounds like it. So after he retired from politics, what did Henry Bellmon do? Like, how did he spend his time? What did he enjoy doing?
So he returned to the farm, and all throughout his career, I mean, he maintained his connection with the farm in Billings, outside of Billings. So we returned to agriculture and agricultural activities. He also lectured. I've got notes someplace that he lectured at University of Central Oklahoma, Oklahoma City University, OSU. Used to have an office in the library on the first floor when I think he was probably working through the political science department here. But he would lecture and had an office on campus. And he also lectured at the University of Oklahoma. So I think it was a way for him to share his experiences and expertise with classes, college level classes. And I think that was probably meaningful for him, and he was very active in doing that at a number of different locations. So he did that, of course, spent time with his family, and kept his ties close to agriculture.
So you touched earlier a little bit on collections involving Henry Bellmon. Can you tell us a little bit more about these collections and where they are in the archival process?
So We have a number of collections related to Senator Bellmon and Governor Bellmon. We have his first gubernatorial materials. That's one set. We have his senatorial period. That's another set. And then his second gubernatorial papers. It's our largest collection in totality. If you take all of those, put it together, it's over 1,200 record storage boxes. So it's a huge collection.
Wow.
One of the challenges is it came in over a different period of time. And some of the processing procedures have changed in the last 40, 50 years. And so what we're doing right now is going through kind of a retrospective processing in which we are re-examining the whole volume of material and creating a system and an order for that material so it'll be easier to find. We're creating new inventories, arranging material, we think, in a much more logical manner, doing preservation efforts with many of the photographs. And so we're hoping within the next couple of years we'll have all of that material then available for researchers. And so right now we consider it offline as we're trying to rework that material and make it just easier to access. We may provide some digital content too, and so people wouldn't have to come here, but also make it easier for when people do come here to get the information they want. In addition to those three kind of groupings of material, we also have a large set of material from Mrs. Bellmon, and we have other materials that have come in since then. We received materials just this last year from the Bellmon family, about 25 boxes of material. So it's continuing to grow, they're continuing to find things, and so we're trying to integrate that into this whole, and so I'm hoping within a few years we'll have a decent way of locating that information. So it'll also be easier for people to identify. Most of the material is actually constituent mail. These are people writing in with comments or questions about things, and so we really want to get a better handle on that volume of material, and it's considerable. So that's what we're working with now.
Living only an hour away in Billings, Oklahoma, Senator Bellmon would often come back to the Stillwater campus to visit and attend football games. A state-of-the-art interdisciplinary research center on the OSU campus, aptly named the Henry Bellmon Research Center, was dedicated in September of 2011. A bust of Senator Bellmon, created by local artist Lou Hale, sits in its main hall. Interviews with folks who worked for and with him are available through the Oklahoma Oral History Research Program at the OSU libraries. This episode featured Samantha Mackey, former digital storytelling intern for the archives, and David Peters, head of the OSU archives, and was produced by Nina Thornton. Theme music is It's a Process, composed by Ben Stone and Finley Green, and published by BBC Production Music, PRS. From the folks at Oklahoma State University Libraries and the archives, thanks for listening, and always remember to keep your archival material flat, cool, and acid-free.